Hey, look who we have.
Hello.
Awesome. And I know we have Jeffrey here, so we will get started. My boys. The boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. All right. Thanks, Superfood, for that last segment on Insights. I always find that stuff so fascinating. And now we get to dive into Providence Ridge, the making of. So, if I understand correctly, hey, there's already playing and he's already dying. Oh my gosh.
Oh no!
I'm going to turn off my camera. I will be here for a little bit, but let's get started with some questions and chit chat about the design choices on making Providence Ridge.
I'm gonna have to pause.
Okay, yeah, don't die. And if so, also just a note for people watching, you can click the screen. So if you want the gameplay to be bigger, just click that, and it will. You won't lose the other people. They'll just kind of go below a little bit. Okay, so I have an opening question for the three of you. Actually, you know what? We've talked to Brant, we've talked to Jeffrey, we've talked to. Let's introduce Mark. We got Undead Mark in the studio. Welcome, Mark.
Unmute.
I wish I could mute. I wish I could unmute for him. I almost did.
Mic is working now?
Yeah.
Mic is working now. Yay!
Great. Thank you. Woo-hoo.
And how's it sounding?
It sounds perfect.
Okay, good. Discord is it randomly picks which mic is going to be pulling from, so
yeah,
it's a good one this time.
It always wants to prompt me to change my inputs too, and I'm like, please no.
Yeah.
Please let them be the same.
Yeah. It's got two different inputs for these headphones, and so I got to figure out which one it likes and which one it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about Providence Ridge today because it is an unusual map, and it's our new. Well, you know what? I won't get into it. I have a question to just kind of kick off talking through this map. So, State of Decay 2 shipped with the 3 original maps. What prompted the desire to make a 4th map, Providence Ridge? Where did that come from?
Who wants to start?
I'll start. Well, making a new map is always something that's desirable so that people aren't always having to play the same thing over and over again. But this map was designed to provide a certain experience that Jeffrey can go into more detail on. But we wanted to. Mark has the hog splitter.
It was requested.
We wanted to try and shore up how we introduce newer players to the game. And Jeffrey, I'll let you take over on sort of the larger ambitions there.
Yeah, so when we were working on State of Decay 2, we were kind of a fairly small team for the scale of the game we were trying to build, and we had to kind of do a lot of things simultaneously. And so we were developing the maps from very early on before we even really understood what the gameplay was going to be. And so we weren't able to plan the maps around the needs to teach the player the gameplay because we didn't even know what it was. And so towards the end of development, we had to start figuring out, okay, how are we going to tutorialize this? All of our bases are just like right in the middle of things in the map. There isn't a safe place to teach the player, the beginnings of the game. So we added Camp Osprey as a place that we could sort of at least teach players the fundamentals of the action gameplay. But we always kind of wished that we had been able to develop the maps in such a way that there was a teaching experience that was a little bit more, just directed towards to welcoming new players into the game. So depending on when you joined our community, if you started playing the game before 2020, you probably started the game in one of the other 3 maps, and had kind of our best attempt at a tutorial that sort of drops you in the middle of everything. But here in Providence Ridge, one of the main reasons this map exists is for this upper corner up here. This is, you can't really see on the map because there's no contour lines or anything, but this is a mountain that is way up in a corner away from everything else with these long sort of switchbacky roads going down to the rest of the map. And so at the beginning of the game, you've got this little neighborhood that's got one of everything. It's got a place to get meds, a place to get food, a place to get fuel, a place to get ammo, another place to get ammo. You need lots of ammo, and places to get materials, that sort of thing. You kind of got this a small amount of everything you need in a place where it's intimidating to go down this hill. And so even though we never, we kind of drew a line in the sand that said we never actually give you this sort of like a linear experience outside of Camp Osprey. Once you leave Camp Osprey, you're in an open world and you can just start exploring however you want. The freedom is yours. But this is an area that would encourage the player to stay close, try out each new thing once, and give some time to the brand new tutorial experience we created, so that we're more likely to kind of to learn how the game works. So that was probably the first thing that sort of drove this. And from the very beginning, this layout of this map, it had this upper corner where we were like, okay, this is where players will start. Then the rest of the map can go nuts like every other map. Is that, Mark, would you say that's I'm describing the lineage of this thing accurately? Because I was on the design side and you were more on the art side.
Yeah, we wanted something
you're
that.
muted. There you go.
How am I
You
muted
weren't. You
again?
were just delayed.
Okay.
For me, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we wanted kind of a little bit of a micro game in a very short area that it didn't lock you in, but everything you needed was there at the beginning. And that's something that the previous maps, you kind of had to go all the way across the map. Like a lot of times they would give you a mission and you would just have to go all the way across the map to do it. And we tried to make it a little bit more compact just to kind of get you started.
Yeah. And then, the whole rest of the map, a lot of the shape of the rest of the map kind of depended on, the sort of the amount of time that we had. Because, the first maps, each of them has, on average, I think about 7 bases. But we knew we only had time to put sort of the effort into making 5 bases on this map. So the bases on this map are actually a little bit different in their nature from the other ones. Brant, I mean, you were definitely much more deeply involved with the base planning than I was. How did you and Brian just sort of think through what bases this belonged here?
Well, like usual, we were testing something new. We were trying out different ideas about bases, how far we could push them, and in what ways we could make them interesting. Each one sort of interesting and the right choice, no matter which one you chose. And whether or not you feel like we were successful, especially in the larger bases like the firehouse and the lumber yard or the lumber mill. Those were us testing ideas about how people wanted to play, and so we spent more time and created fewer bases. And it also was sort of assisting the tutorial idea where the easier to attain bases were sort of up closer to where the mountain is. That first one, Rusty Rosie's, which is near and
Right
dear
at
to
the
my
base of the
heart.
mountain.
I absolutely love Rusty Rosie's. I love everything.
It's one of my
about it.
favorites too.
And I'm not going to say that we made a mistake because, as we all know, game is perfect. But in all the previous maps, your starter home, you could stay there for a very long time and not have to leave. Where we wanted to start the first base, you would outgrow it quickly. And we hope that that's the experience people got, is like, oh, there's not enough beds. There's not enough places to build anything. And then right about that time, we kind of cue you like, maybe you should look for another base. That's a little bit, that has some room to grow. That was the intended experience.
And if I remember correctly, the data was also telling us that a lot of people were spending so much time in those starter bases that, like you said, it was time to start getting people used to the idea of changing bases to better their situation. So we definitely pushed you in that direction.
Yeah, and this map ended up having, it kind of had to serve two dual purposes though, because not only was this going to be the first map that brand new players found when they joined the game, and at the time that we released this map, we were going out to Steam for the first time, we were going into China for the first time, and so there was going to be a flood, millions of new players who were going to be playing this game for the first time, so a lot of our choices had to be geared around the new players. But we also already had millions of players who were playing the game for whom they were going to want to, come in and see this map and see it as a step forward, as an upgrade to what they had already been experiencing. And so we had to kind of split this difference where on one hand we needed to have a set of very good early starter bases versus, this very simple tutorial base. And then a couple of really good bases to graduate to immediately after the starter base. We always wanted the player to have a choice at every stage. We didn't want it to feel like, here's a series of 5 bases that you have to take in a certain order. So once you're done with the starter base, you choose one of the 2 smaller bases. But then for the advanced players who were coming in, we wanted to make sure that they had like huge, enormous, ambitious bases that they could get excited about and move into. And so the fire station and the lumber mill were kind of meant to be top tier bases that even somebody who had been in the best bases in all of the other maps would still feel excited to try out.
There was a question that came in about what your guys' favorite bases are. Brant, Mark, and Jeffrey in Providence Ridge. La Coalición is curious.
For me, it's a multiple choice answer. Aesthetically, I like the Firewatch. I think it's fantastic base. It was unique in its layout. It had a lot of cool things. It's certainly something that I would look for to get my people up off the ground, even though we didn't really have capability to have people living up there. Believe me, we tried, but the NPCs just had a hard time like navigating up and down the
stairs. Yeah.
The stairs. Yeah. I mean, when we first started out, there'd be NPCs climbing up to the top and then just launching themselves off the top. So it was, game is perfect, as Mark said, but we did run into some problems there. But so aesthetically, I love this base a lot. Rusty Rosie's is, I think, just a wonderful feel. It's definitely like that eclectic roadside diner kind of place you'd find out in the middle of nowhere, especially in this is modeled after sort of the foothills of the Cascades. And just these small little towns that have great personalities all of their own. And so Rusty Rosie's is definitely along that vein. And then, of course, you have the Firehouse, which Mark built a beautiful model for. And that's one of those sort of like zombie survival fantasy must-haves is like, well, there's already infrastructure there. Like, and that base actually was one of the test beds for providing people who didn't really want to deal with the base building aspect. We gave them pretty much everything they'd need in that building. And then is very light on sort of base management. And then the opposite of that, of course, was the lumber mill, which originally, I will say, was called Lautenbach Lumber, named after our own Lautenbach. And you'll still see evidence of that if you look at the saw. Big industrial saw is Lautenbach Lumber. So we kept a little bit of Mark's Easter egg in there for him.
Yeah, I like Brent said, I like the Firewatch. I really wish we could have utilized the upper room a little bit more, but having a scout tower in your base is kind of a cool idea. And I wish we could have put that scout tower a few more places, but we wanted it to kind of also be unique. But then, I mean, the Firehouse, I mean, architecturally speaking, I really love just they really make firehouses look cool on purpose. And a lot of times they're the oldest building in a town. And you can climb on the roof, there's a little bunch of balconies and stuff. It's also right in the middle of a town, which I like. Not many bases are really in the middle of a town. And it's got that, you're in the middle of a street fair when everything went nuts. So you've got that little parade going through town. And of course, the bell across the street. The fact that we were able to make that thing ring and then Brant Brant put a little sign on there. Whatever you do not ring the bell. I really do love that base. I mean, it's got just enough room to put all the stuff you want in it, but it's not so huge that you can do anything you want. Yeah, and it's very centrally located. Yeah, I super dig it.
Jeffrey, if
Yeah.
you drive down there, we'll be able to show another sort of Easter egg that Mark. This is maybe 25 years now, Mark, that this Easter egg has been living in game space. So Mark has maybe the longest long con going as far as video game Easter eggs, and we're about to witness it.
So you wanted me to head to the firehouse? That's where I'm headed right now.
Go to that main street.
All right. So as far as like, I don't really have a favorite base on this map, just because I mean I really do love them all for their own reasons. I just wanted to quickly call out while I was preparing for this stream. I had to move one of my communities here, and I was asking which base I should settle in, and actually one of my viewers specifically recommended that I settle in the what was the name of the base again? The Weston Building Supply. Which is the one we haven't mentioned yet, because it's got such massive storage. And this community that I'm playing is one where I've been accumulating so much crap over time. Like my biggest problem is just where do I keep all my crap?
Right, stop here. Stop here.
Oh, stop here. All right. So yeah,
get out and take a look at that banner.
Oh,
banner hanging in the street after you kill zombies here.
So a little bit of backstory. I used to work for a company called Humongous Entertainment. We made children's games, a lot of point and click children's games. And one of the things that one of my jobs was, like, say there's like a tree. You click on the tree and something happens. A bird will come out or the bark will change color, something like that. And one of them, you click on it and a little beaver came out and just went around the tree and created a little sculpture. I kind of made a little character out of this beaver called Evil Beaver.
There he is.
And after that game, I put that beaver into every game that I worked on, no matter what company. I would sneak it in just random spots. And so this was the first time I was able to put Evil Beaver into State of Decay.
Evil Beaver has been around for a very long time.
And yes, Maxie,
yeah.
Putt Putt, Freddy Fish, Pajama Sam, the Backyard Sports, Spy Fox, among others.
In fact, Mark basically taught me how to do those click points when I started after him at Humongous all those many millions of years ago.
Yep, literal frame by frame, pixel by pixel animation.
Get out of here, Jeffrey.
I was just going to say, I love it when developers have like individual, because most games, games are generally, with few exceptions, made by large teams of people, funded by large companies, and I love it when an individual developer has got an Easter egg of their own that follows them from game to game. That's just like, I don't know, I there's been 2 games now where I made reference to like my favorite Fry and Laurie sketch, but it's only 2 games, and I don't feel like I really committed to that the way I should have. I love that Mark has gotten Evil Beaver into a lot of things.
I'm hoping maybe we can put Evil Beaver on an SOD t-shirt someday. I wonder.
Well, I think in our game he's called Dusty for the Sawdust Days.
Dusty. Well, actually, speaking of like local town mascots, I mean, I don't think we can really do justice to talking about Providence Ridge without talking about Shaggy Jack. I wonder if you two want to talk about the origin of Shaggy Jack. Who decided we needed this, and why did it end up the way how did it get where it is?
Mark, do you remember? Because it's a little sketchy for me.
Yeah, I'm not.
I think this was a Doug idea, if I recall correctly.
Like a lot of things in our game,
maybe. Oh, yeah.
We're just in a room and we just start throwing ideas, and sometimes we're not sure who said it first, and someone just latches onto it, and everyone's like, "Yes, this is what we're doing," and then someone else throws an idea, and someone else throws an idea, and there's so many things in State of Decay that are just such a collaborative mix of just different people throwing ideas in. And so we need to like, what will make Providence Ridge unique from all the other maps? And someone says, well, maybe a mascot. And well, it's in the Pacific Northwest, we have the Sasquatch. And someone says, yes. And so, Dan Moe just says, I'm on it. I'll make a big Sasquatch statue, and became Shaggy Jack. And so there's like the big statue. Then there's also the coffee shop that is Shaggy Jack Coffee, which has a variation of the logo. And like you see in a lot of towns that have something similar, everyone's got their own version of what that thing looks like. And so that's kind of what we wanted for this town, to have a specific town identity with its own little street fair and parade, and everything kind of surrounded about like kind of the logging industry.
Shaggy Jack ended up being a little bit bigger than that, right? Like, I mean, it's not. It ended up. It started out as like this sort of town mascot used as by corporations and stuff like that. But then, after the outbreak, somebody took it a little bit further, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's an example of what happens when you let the art team kind of run itself. And one of the things that has made our maps so personable and successful is that we do allow artists to stretch themselves a little bit and have some fun with the maps. And that's why we have such great visual storytelling, even with the limited number of props we have. We do find these little individual little stories, stacked around. So things like Shaggy Jack just end up taking on a life of their own. I remember the discussion where we thought, well, because this is such an iconic character for this region, what happens when people are losing their minds in the apocalypse? Maybe they start to worship or build a bigger story around Shaggy Jack and the Sasquatch itself. So, as most of you here know, there is a spot in this map where some people may have taken the Shaggy Jack thing a bit too far.
Yeah, I'm not good enough at finding the spot where that happens. Maybe I should go looking for it while we wrap up the conversation.
Mark and I visited there just the other day when we were playing on my map, actually.
If you look at the map, it's on the far west side, just under a little notch in the map.
Around here someplace, right?
Yes. About there.
A little
farther west.
Yeah, but that'll get
the
you
entrance
to the
is around here somewhere. All right,
yeah,
I'm gonna go down and head that way.
So
yeah, but I
with
absolutely really like. Oh, go ahead.
We started like one of the unique weapons that we had, or we started with in this map, again, logger themed, was a double bit axe. So it's a heavy weapon, blade on each end, which is also called a Michigan style axe. So a little shout out to our buddy Michigander. He's got his own axe in the game.
And that ended up tying in with Shaggy Jack.
Yes, it's basically it's the logger axe, and a lot of these statues will have a giant version. But as we may see soon, someone put some modifications on. And it's one of my favorite weapons of the game.
I was just going to mention while I'm on my way up there, one other little point about just sort of the bases that I really liked was the fact that because we were trying to serve two audiences with this map. We've got both the brand new players who need starter bases and the advanced players who needed really advanced, exciting bases for experienced players. There wasn't a lot of space in between those two for like just middle of the road bases. I'm probably getting myself completely lost here. Let me go find a road. And so one of the clever ideas that I thought, that I think it was Brian that came up with this. One of the really clever ideas was that both of the smaller bases have those Clio drops in them. which they sit there occupying a large slot. So each of those bases has 2 large slots in it, which makes it more of a mid-range type base rather than a very early game base. But those are both occupied with those Clio drops that early on players don't have the resources or the skills to clear. And so each of those small bases is designed to kind of grow with the player, to start out as a starter base and then grow to become a medium base as they get the skills to work that out. And then they can graduate on to the bigger, more advanced bases. And I don't know, just
follow the
some of
road to the right. Go right.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So a lot of my
then-
favorite sort of design choices that people make are ones where they're like by necessity. It's like we only have 5
Right.
bases. We got this huge split. Is it further to the right?
Take a hard right here and go until you run into there should be an entrance right in front of you there.
Right there. Yes.
There it is.
Okay. But yeah, I love design choices that come out of solving problems like that. Like you've got, like we only have 5 bases. We need to serve these 2 very divergent audiences, so we'll come up with a way to make a base very flexible. And I thought that really worked. And so yeah, this is one of my favorite designed maps and sort of offerings of bases because it's doing so much to solve so many problems.
And Brian was like a savant at both asking the right questions and coming up with solutions that were within our power to do.
So this feels like something out of Valheim more than something out of State of Decay. So we've got these skulls with blood dripping down from them, hanging from these standing stones, and then this massive Shaggy Jack here with a skull on his head.
And
I'm glad you found it at
area?
night because that really looks way better at night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, this feels like Yellow Jackets. This feels like something out of Yellow Jackets. But who actually built this area? I don't remember.
I think it was Chris Vanderleest that ended up putting this together.
Zombie hands holding a desiccated head.
Chris loved to smash props together to make new and interesting stuff, and by interesting I mean creepy as F. It was his forte, actually, coming up with like interesting ways to repurpose a lot of our existing props.
So most of these props existed already for other reasons that had nothing to do with a creepy religion. But
all of them did. There's nothing new here. I mean, the Shaggy Jack statue was originally made for the
coffee shop, right?
Well, the coffee shop, and
the Winchester camp.
Yeah.
Oh right, the Firewatch.
Originally, we did do like a creepier version of that prop, but we were running out of memory to do unique objects, so we had to retire that prop. It was the Shagoroth.
I'm going to jump in, we're coming to the end of our time, and so I want to make sure we get in this trivia question. Same rules apply. I'm going to ask the question, drop your answer in chat. First 10 or so correct ones will be chosen at random, and you'll be contacted by Megan or Rohan. So we touched on this earlier, but didn't say the name of it. Mark was talking about it. Said the festival in Providence Ridge, that it was interrupted by the outbreak. What was the name of that festival? So drop your answers, and I'll let you guys get back into it. We've got about just a couple minutes left if you want to wrap up.
I'm just highlighting this Flavor Aid cup here that the cult has got next to this guy. So like, yeah, this guy, like, if you really explore, like, you guys were talking about this before, how it's really nice that that when we're building maps, there's a certain amount of like, we need this here, we need that there, we need to fulfill certain requirements, and there's like, you got to have a certain number of each type of site, you got to have a certain number of this, certain number of that, a lot of constraints. But also we make sure that there's room for, there's lots of space in between for artists to just do whatever the crap they want without necessarily having to, buildings, like when an artist is allowed to build something that doesn't have any requirements on it, that's when you get a lot of the most interesting stuff on the map. And if you go to some of the corners of our map that aren't there to do a job for the design, that's where you'll find some of the most interesting, just like stories being told. And yeah.
Doug Juno made the gladiator pit, the zombie gladiator pit, has nothing to do with gameplay or missions or anything, but you walk up there and you're like, oh, some stuff went down here.
Yeah, and the traps in Trumbull Valley up at the lake. It's just like somebody's been trapping zombies up here, and he just came up with a bunch of weird scenarios.
Yeah, that's some of the most fun stuff about being an artist in on the State of Decay games is often we do have the leeway to tell little stories that we didn't know needed to be told, but they really enhance the game and the world that the game's in a lot.
And I love games that reward exploration. There's looting, obviously. You can loot different places, but you find these little stories that kind of give you an idea of what has happened to this town. Like, where did everyone go, and what did they do? And you see this zombie gladiator pit, and you're like, people lost their minds and really lost their humanity. And then you see other places that, like you find a note of, someone's, Santa list. And you're like, oh yeah, that's what people used to be like. And the environment artist just went absolutely nuts and just made all these little story bits everywhere. I mean, I'm sure there's many that I've never seen before, just because they put so many cool bits in, and they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And some of them are just like, oh, that is, so cute, or that's horrifying.
So I'm gonna run to a better lit area so I can show off the axe that I just got. I forgot how to get out of here, though. This is where I live now. Oh crap, Feral!
This may be where you die too.
It may very well. Oh, I like Sinjin. I've dressed him like a firefighter and everything because he's so great.
We are at time. We've got about. So we've got.
A second.
You've got 2 minutes, Jeffrey.
Okay. I just want to. Okay, I gotta murder this zombie. Oh, this other zombie as well.
If I had a nickel, just one more zombie, just one more.
I'm gonna take a quick second to thank Wonder and Alicia and everybody who was involved in setting this up, because there was a lot of work that went into it with planning and things like that. So Wonder and Alicia and everybody, really, thank you for helping us celebrate this game that is near and dear to my heart like nothing else, except maybe my child. I don't know. Depends on the day.
Couldn't do it without you all. It's super exciting. Couldn't do it without everyone. Thank you for volunteering your Friday.
I was just trying to show the stupid axe, and just every zombie showed up.
We didn't even get to talk about the hidden Echo Lab in this.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to cover. By the way, Isby won Sawdust Days. A lot of people knew that one. Good job. Congrats, Isby.
But
congrats.
This is my favorite map of all of them. Even though you'd think that I spent the last 12 years working in Trumbull Valley at one point or another, this is the one that I felt we really utilized all the lessons we've learned about making maps and really just went overboard on it. So
I love that they actually made a full-on street fair, and I don't think there's a unique prop in that entire thing, other than maybe the banner. Everything else they just cobbled together out of stuff we already had. It's awesome.
That's the State of Decay method. That's how we do things here.
I did not know that. That's impressive, honestly.
That's how we do. You make the most of what you got.
Well, and it's part of the philosophy of the game too, is using
repurposing. Yeah. Yep, be resourceful.
So that's what we do when we're making the maps too, is we use whatever's available to the best of our ability. So Jeffrey's about
all right,
to
guys.
One of Mark's
we got to do this. We've got 1 minute, and then we have got the audio team coming in. So thank you guys.
You do not want to
for
start a fight
jumping
with the audio team.
Oh,
You're getting out of here.
Yeah. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jeffrey, for playing.
Love you guys. Thanks for showing up. We appreciate it.
Next up, we're going to
Yep.
hear from audio.